Fortunato de la Peña. Thank you, sir, for attending. Maraming salamat. Good morning. We have Undersecretary Carol Yurobe. Good morning. Morning po. We have Undersecretary Rowena Guevara. Good morning po. We also have from government as well, Director Jerry Clavisillas from DTI, ang aking suking resource speaker, who's always with us. I think that's it for government. From the private sector, we have Dr. Edsel Salvania from UP Manila, my batchmate in many ways. Ms. Maui Arroyo, President and CEO of Hyperdyne Consulting Incorporated. Mr. John Orlina, COO of the same organization. We have Ms. Bam Besa, co-founder of Road to Retail. Another BAM in the world. Konti lang tayo. We met already. I cracked the same joke the last time. Ms. Shumate Royo of Office Project. Magandang umaga. We have Mr. Leo Develos of Idea Space Foundation. Mr. Dan Siason of Kickstart Ventures. I see Joan Yao there in the back. And other friends, magandang umaga. Good morning. Okay, before anything else, let me acknowledge for the record the members of the committee. So I am chairing the committee, and our members from the majority are Senators Angara, Ejercito, Villar, Zubiri, and Legarda. From the minority is Senator Trillanes, and our ex-officio members, Senators Drilon, Soto, and Recto, who used to be the chairman of this organization. All right, and again, for the record, we move to adopt the rules of the Senate in the conduct of hearings, meetings, and investigations of the committee. Nobody's going to object, obviously, because I'm the only one here. We'll strike that from the record. No objections, so we adopt the rules of the Senate and the rules of procedure governing inquiries in aid of legislation. All right, magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. So let me begin by the good secretary and I had a short meeting earlier, and we talked about some priority measures that we will be tackling. For those of you who've attended my hearings in the past, we try our best to really get a consensus from the private sector and from the government sector on the reforms that we want to push. We try to be very purposive with the reforms we're pushing. We try to prioritize also which reforms we'll be pushing first. So far, what we've talked about, I think, are quite doable for the 17th Congress. But I'd like to hear it from Secretary de la Peña himself. Sir, are there top 3 or 4 legislative measures that you would want to see passed in the 17th Congress?
Thank you, Your Honor. As we have earlier discussed, the priority bills that we would like to see passed has something to do with number 1, the nuclear applications regulation, because there is really some pressure from the international community that the regulation aspect should be separated from the research and development and operational aspect. At the moment, the work one on R&D and operations, and the other one on regulation of nuclear applications is under one agency. So the clamor or the pressure is for us to have them separate and to be independent. The other one that we discussed earlier had something to do with the Balik Scientist program, because this has been an ongoing program, but there is really no legislation, and we would like to strengthen it, because one of the priorities in this administration that I am involved with is to really tap the expertise of people from outside. And we know that there is already a big community of Filipino expatriates working outside who have interest in helping our country, and we have already had this structure on how they can serve, but we would like it to be, shall we say, strengthened through a piece of legislation so that we can really plan over a longer term. Then we have something that I have not actually mentioned this morning is an act that will strengthen our national measurement infrastructure. This is the amendment to the National Metrology Act of 2003. It was passed in 2003. This is Republic Act 9236, which established the National Metrology Institute under the Department of Science and Technology. The bill that we want to be passed is the establishment of the National Metrology Institute after the passage of the National Metrology Act in 2003, because this is necessary to provide capability building programs through competency training to strengthen the metrology authorities at the local level. So again, this is one area that we sort of have lagged behind. Although we were able to pass the Metrology Act, the accompanying capability building has not been well. And while we have at DOST now provided for a substantial budget to acquire the needed equipment, still an institute, I think, is in order. So maybe the other bills that I mentioned to you are the possible passage of the Space Technology Agency, because there has been good morning, Senator Gatchalian. Because there has been activities already in the area of R&D that we have undertaken, where we have invested on, and we feel that there should be some direction to this. Yeah, so the others that I have mentioned had something to do with the amendment of the Magna Carta, and also there is a proposal for a comprehensive science and technology policy. We have not yet, there is no bill yet on this.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Secretary? Proposal for?
This is an act establishing a comprehensive science and technology policy. So, actually, this is the first time I've seen this.
Yusek Guevara.
As you may know, Senator, the EO-128 is the basis of DOST right now. And there are certain things due to advances in science and technology that are not included in that 1987 EO. And we believe that the country will be strengthened further if we put SNT in the front runner. So that is exactly what we would like to accomplish in this bill.
Well, maybe just for discussion, what would be the salient points of that bill? Yusek Guevara.
The salient point of the SNT bill would be to state the role of SNT in all aspects of our economy, our socio-cultural activities, and all of those things. But mostly to put the role of SNT in everything that we do. Because right now, parang we are a footnote. We are not even included in the Philippine Development Plan as a chapter. And so we need to strengthen the SNT policy of the country.
Thank you. Let me acknowledge Senator Gatchalian. Magandang umaga, Senator Win. So far, we're talking about the priority measures from the DOST side. So they've been talking about what are some of the reforms they would like to see in the 17th Congress. Anything else, Secretary de la Peña?
I did mention earlier to you, although I have not discussed this with my colleagues, the idea of maybe having a Philippine Science High School in ARM.
Thank you. So far, from the DOST side, we have the clarifications on regulations on nuclear materials. We have the Balik Scientist program to institutionalize the Balik Scientist program. And maybe I can ask Dr. Salvania, who is a Balik Scientist, no? Is Ms. Maui also a Balik Scientist?
No.
No? Okay. Mukhang scientist. Well, just scientist. Hindi Balik Scientist, no? Okay. Dr. Salvania, maybe you could, if you have any thoughts on this matter.
Yes, I think that I fully support that idea of the a Balik Scientist bill, because I have benefited tremendously from it. I think that part of the reason why we have been proposing amendments to the Magna Carta for scientists is to strengthen the retention of balik scientists. I'm both a clinician and a researcher, and so from a clinician standpoint, I can generate enough income to keep my family happy. But for the vast majority of our scientists in the Philippines, it's actually almost, it's pitiful how much we value them. And that's, you wouldn't be surprised why they're leaving, because the salaries that we offer our scientists are a pittance compared to their contributions to the country.
And the salaries are from the private sector or from the public sector?
Both, actually.
Both.
And because, as Yusek Guevara had mentioned, we are a footnote. We do not value our scientists, but there was a very comprehensive lecture of Yusek Stella Kimbo Alabastro in our last NIH anniversary, where she actually charted the value of the Filipino scientist, and there's a lot of indirect benefit that is not necessarily quantifiable based on what you're putting in, but it is one of the best investments. I'll give you a good example. NASA in the United States, which is seen as a science, as a basic science area, has generated so much in terms of the downstream economic benefit, and it is one of the best investments that mankind has ever made.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Salvania.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
quickly. Mr. Chair, before we go deeper into the balik scientists, I just want to make a manifestation. I filed the bill, actually I filed it last Congress, and then I refiled it this year to establish math and science schools all over the nation. I think particularly the highly urbanized cities and the cities in particular. Our experience in Valenzuela, in fact, when I assumed mayor in 2004, we had what we call Valenzuela Science School, but we added mathematics because our experience in Valenzuela, a lot of our students fear math. So we renamed the school into Valenzuela Math and Science School. It's one of the more modern math and science school in the nation. And our experience there has been really positive and tremendous. In fact, a lot of the students who graduated there end up being engineers, going to UP, or taking up really complex courses. And nakakawa po, no? Because when I was going around the country, ang dami nating magagaling na students. Unfortunately, they're not harnessed, no? They're not given the training that they need to really bring out the best in terms of math and science. And kasi hindi pa kalat, no, yung math and science school natin all over the nation. So it's a simple bill, no? I'm sure, I don't know if it's going to land with you or with education. Actually, coincidentally, the chair of the Committee on Education is Senator Bam also. But it's a good project to promote math and science all over the nation. Ngayon kasi concentrated siya in highly urbanized cities, but we cannot discount the fact that we have brilliant students all over the nation in far-flung areas that we need to rigorously train them. Yeah.
Secretary, maybe you can, before we go to the Magna Carta for science workers on this point, maybe you can give us an overview of how many science high schools there are in the Philippines.
Before I do that, Your Honor, I just want to mention to Senator Gatchalian that they should not be surprised if there will be visitors to the Valenzuela Science High School, because I have also been approached by a number of cities asking us to put up a science high school in their locations, but we are following the law that there should be one per region. So I was telling them, I think you should visit the Valenzuela Science High School because this is good for benchmarking. Because for me, I have witnessed how fast it has grown, and because of the students winning the competitions from Valenzuela, I gave them the idea of visiting. Okay. Anyway,
is the Valenzuela Science High School part of the? It's not. It's an LGU school, diba?
It's an LGU school. We complied with the requirements of DepEd, no. But it has nothing to do, I think, with the DOST, no, which is actually maybe we can do something to put that together. But the bottom line here is the students undergo rigorous math and science training, and they are the test and the qualification is much higher compared to an ordinary school. So these students really, kumbaga sa Olympian, mas intense in training itong mga students na ito. No?
If I may proceed with the briefing on the Philippine Science High School, the Philippine Science High School is now a 52-year-old institution being set up in 1964. Initially, there was a single campus, the one in Quezon City, and where some of our guests have graduated. Then later on, there were campuses that were set up in Davao and Iloilo, and later in Palo, Leyte. Now, after that, a law was passed that there will be a Philippine Science High School in each region of the country. And therefore, between the years from 2000 up to 2016, we had been busy setting up the campuses. And we are happy to report that as of August 8, 2016, the last two campuses opened their doors to their freshman students. I'm referring to the Zamboanga Peninsula campus located in Dipolog and the Mimaropa campus located in Romblon. Well, that completes the 16 that we are supposed to set up. There, of course, if the Negros Island region will really be put into place, then we will need to put up one there. So in terms of enrollment, Mr. Senator, Your Honor, the main campus has the biggest enrollment because we take in around 240 freshmen every year, while in the regional campuses we take on 90 per campus.
Mr. Secretary, if the goal was to put that in all the regions, kung all provinces or all highly urbanized cities, for example lang, could the OST still handle it?
Oo naman, Senator. I'm just afraid that when we go that far, baka DepEd might already question it.
Okay, maybe we can, buti nilang kala ko yung chairman ng education, di ba? But this time, we can have a separate discussion about that. One of the discussion points about the science high schools is that they have a much larger budget than the regular high schools. Is that totoo ba yun?
I don't have the figures, but I believe we have a higher budget than the typical high school.
But what Yusek Guevara said na putting science and technology front and center means it has to start from, it just can't come at the end. It has to start from the beginning, and probably supporting our science high schools means sa simula pa lang, habang kabataan pa lang, natitrain na kaagad sila, no?
A program at the Science Education Institute. This is one institute of DOST, one among 18 agencies of DOST that is devoted primarily to scholarships. They do not run the Philippine Science High School, but they are in charge of the scholarships from the baccalaureate up to the PhD level. But it is also an institute that is tasked to render training for science and math teachers with the cooperation of DepEd. We cannot just do it without DepEd's cooperation. So we have a program called STAR. This is the Science and Technology Academy in the regions, and this is the venue by which we try to assist the science and math teachers in the regions, particularly in areas where we have collaborating agencies.
Secretary, just because the one, based on our experience, the Valenzuela Math and Science School is under DepEd, the operation and maintenance is under the local government because it demands higher budget in terms of operating the school, but the teachers and the curriculum comes from the DepEd. Would you know whether there's a big difference between the DOST-run science school versus a DepEd science school? No? Because, sorry po, when we were formulating the school, our initial reaction was really to jump with DepEd, no? But apparently there's DOST also runs its own schools. No?
Dr. Kabatik here is the Executive Director of the Philippine Science High School. Maybe he can enlighten us. But as far as I know, when we were about to implement K-12, there was really a lot of convergence that was done between DepEd and the Philippine Science High School. We were part of the training team for the preparations to K-12. There a big difference between.
Good morning, Senators. It is indeed a fact that the Philippine Science High School system curriculum is significantly different from the DepEd curriculum, because ours is more in depth on science and mathematics, enriched in science and mathematics subjects,
Research also.
as well as research.
In terms po of, itong 16 po is fully funded and operated by the DOST.
Yes.
But
Through GAA.
through GA. So the main difference really is the research-oriented curriculum as well as intense focus on science, math and science, no?
Maybe as far as the City Science High School, because I have been witnessing their participation in many of our competitions, like Valenzuela, Pasay, Makati. I believe that they are following also a very science-oriented.
So far naman our
school.
experience has been quite
yeah.
tremendous.
Yeah.
But siguro in terms of streamlining, do you think there is a need to maybe in terms of math and science schools in particular should be supervised, no, by the DOST instead of DepEd? Just to be streamlined, like kami po. Actually, my chain of thought goes to I think you should also look at the local governments, no, because a lot of the local governments are really willing to put up their math and science school, and most of the highly urbanized cities have the cash and the budget to do it, no. And ang kulang lang nila talaga yung technical know-how, how to set it up, the curriculum. But ngayon po, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud na baka mas maganda to in Valenzuela Math and Science School to partner with DOST, because you've been running this type of schools, no? Anyways, and this is, I would assume, part of your inherent mandate, no, as DOST.
Your Honor, we welcome partnering. Okay, we just want to clarify the administrative supervision side, because I think that is not basically our mandate.
Maybe, Senator Win, we can have a separate hearing. We can invite DepEd here, and we can discuss the Philippine Science High School system as
If I
well.
may, Your Honor, maybe it's not only the Valenzuela City Science High. There are other science high schools which can be invited to have the discussion.
Yeah, okay, sige. We'll move on now to other matters. There was also a intention to pass the Magna Carta for science workers, if I'm not mistaken, Secretary. Maybe you can also ask, alam ko si Dr. Salvania was the one who texted me in the 16th Congress about this bill. Maybe you could quickly talk to us about it, Dr. Salvania.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Magna Carta for Scientists that we had proposed, and this was with working with former Secretary Alabastro as well as for Secretary De La Peña, is really tackles expanding the benefits, which is initially under DOST and government, to all scientists in the Philippines. And the rationale for this is really that, as we had already mentioned, we're training so many science high school students, but we're basically training them for the rest of the world. Because when they graduate and they're looking for science careers, the salary that we can compensate them here is minuscule compared to the rest of the world. And so the amendments that we proposed include expanding this, also in terms of grants and aid for scientists, because right now, especially in government, we are constrained by salary scales and DBM circulars in terms of how much we can compensate our scientists.
Are we talking about scientists working in government or scientists in general?
Scientists in general, but for scientists in government in particular, there are agency rules that actually limit our compensation. And so it doesn't matter if you get a United States NIH grant, which will allow you to earn $200,000 a year. You are constrained by the rules of double compensation, that you can only get whatever your salary scale is plus a certain amount of honoraria.
So what you're saying is, limited na nga yung nabibigay ng gobyerno, nililimit pa yung pwedeng makuha outside.
Absolutely,
And that
even if
becomes
it's
a
on your own
problem.
steam. And it's a third-party funder.
Right. Let me ask Ms. Arroyo of Hybridyne. I think you also have a position paper on the Magna Carta for scientists. Ms. Arroyo.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. We've been working at the firm with scientists for the last 12 years, both in those working in state universities and colleges and in private sector universities such as the University of San Carlos, Ateneo, and La Salle. that's one of the reasons the position paper we submitted to your office is to the committee is that we would like to extend the benefits for all academic scientists. I think the plight of the Filipino scientists is that we ask them to do 300,000 things at the same time. We ask them to do research, apply for research grants, publish their research, mentor their research assistants, do admin work, commercialize their research, and be on call for radio stations to ask any science communication questions. And we pay them a pittance. I don't think that we're asking for something that is too cushy, and we will not benefit from this, but the country will. But certainly, if the government cannot at least forego revenue in the sense of tax holidays for our scientists, I really think it will not move the needle too much on the BIR's taxation. I think that what is key is that we change the salary grade scale. And if we could have maybe different tracks for teaching, because some people have sublime research papers but should never be put in a classroom. Some people in a classroom should not be put in a lab. And maybe it would be good for the country if we differentiated between teaching, basic research, which is the quest for knowledge, and applied research, which is the quest to make a social impact. And that would help. And if we can make suggested metrics for promotion there. But I don't think we can treat them the same way that we treat LTO clerks, with no disrespect to the LTO. Thank you.
Maui,
Yes.
you talked about research a lot, no?
Yes.
And it seems that research as a field doesn't seem to be highly valued in the Philippines. What happens when research is left behind? I know you've worked in other countries as well, and you've seen how the rest of the world is treating its science sector. Firstly, is it true that we're not really focusing on research enough? Secondly is, what happens if we don't focus on research enough?
Those are two very important questions, Mr. Senator. The first question being, is it true that we don't focus on research enough? I would disagree, because the entire Department of Science and Technology focuses on research. But it depends on who is appointed to the department, whether the focus is basic research or applied research. No? Basic research, focusing only, for example, on applied research or things that would make a social impact, is sort of like as a school focusing on graduation instead of enrollment. Eventually, you're going to run out of things to commercialize, no? But to focus only on basic research is a luxury that our country cannot afford with our limited resources. However, if you are going to international standards, it is wrong not to do any research, because they tend to be left with their thesis advisors. Most science students, after they graduate, never want to see their thesis again, which is understandable. But what happens is that you have a huge untapped spring of knowledge in our universities. And while certain legislative measures such as the Technology Transfer Act of 2009 and certainly the Magna Carta have tried to ease that into the private sector, the field is still in its infancy. And I think the OST and the universities, especially the SUCs, are doing the best that they can. IP Philippines under DTI has also helped in this regard. But I think the important thing for research kasi is that if we don't have enough critical mass, there are probably like 120 scientists who are running multiple research projects because we don't have enough scientists here. And not all of them have the skill set to commercialize, no? That's difficult.
Will the Magna Carta or the reforms of the Magna Carta produce more scientists? Is that one of the output that we hope to see from the reform?
I think the expected outcome we would hope from, at least from our position paper, is that we keep more scientists in the country, and those who benefit from the Balik Scientist program, like my colleague from UP Manila, will certainly stay longer. Thank you.
Yeah, Secretary, is that one of the goals, to keep scientists in the Philippines?
Yes, Your Honor, because there are actually two competitors here, those who are doing research whether in government, for example, or in the universities, they can really jump to industry, okay, but most likely not in a research type of work anymore. So, for example, our graduated, well, I come from DUP College of Engineering, graduated engineers with advanced degrees can do research in the government or maybe some companies, but there are not too many who have their own R&D programs. But when they jump to the industry sector, most likely they will be into operations or in management, and so the R&D part again disappears. The other temptation, of course, is the increasing mobility of scientists, not only region-wide but globally. And you cannot really prevent them from leaving, considering the opportunities and considering their own needs. What has been brought up, I think I have also been a victim of this. You see the cap in terms of the honorarium that was supposed to be earned. Maybe this is off the record. Maybe I retired from the DOT with all the benefits, but somebody reminded me that at UP, I can still claim my Provident Fund contributions. So I started applying for my Provident Fund contributions. I think it was around 40,000 pesos. But then I had to clear again with the UP system. After all the clearances, and I found out that I had a disallowance of 65,000 for honorarium.
We need a scientist to fix his mic, no? Baka we can change his mic po.
I think it's better and technology workers that we limit the
Senator.
so they have not we are not being provided with the adequate compensation and incentive, and yet all of these are limited, the possible honoraria.
Okay, so I think this is something I don't expect we will receive a lot of opposition on this. We'll try to pass this as well as soon as we can. Hopefully that can keep our scientists here, alleviate some of the burdens that they have. Okay. Mukhang may
able to launch Diwata. Okay, of course, the feeling is that it should not stop there, and there are so many, shall we say, advances that we have to cope up with. There are still things that we have to do research-wise, and therefore we have allocated certain amounts for the next 2 years to continue the program. But my feeling is that there should be a a goal that we should set. There should be something where it will lead to, and certainly, considering our structure, it is implementing research implemented by UP people, but where does it lead to? So our idea is that it should lead to some regular operations of a space agency, because there are many applications that it can serve, and if I may mention also, we would not like to be left behind.
So in short, this institutionalization of a space agency, primarily is really for satellite, no? Wala naman sa roadmap yung Philippine astronaut, no, Secretary? Is that, I'm not sure if that's in the roadmap, no? It's really more the satellites, no?
More of the satellites and the satellite technology applications.
Applications, no? And we're looking at usage in disasters, in agriculture, how do you call this, security. Maraming applications po yan. Right now, nakiki-satellite tayo. Is that right, Yusek?
Right now, we are buying satellite tower.
So nakiki-satellite tayo and may cost pa yon. If we have our own, then hopefully we don't need to buy from others.
Yes, Senator.
All right. So we will tackle that also in a separate hearing. I'm sure that will pique the interest of a lot of our countrymen. So although the group that did present to me said that we'll start with microsatellites, but who knows? Maybe years down the line, we might even see a Filipino in. Has a Filipino ever been in space? Never, no? Because if I'm not mistaken, one of the countries that they mentioned, it was another country's rocket, no, or another country's ship, but they did have a. No. I think it was another ASEAN country that requested to have a Malaysia, ba? I think it was Malaysia. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a Filipino astronaut in our lifetime. No, who knows? All right.
Point ko lang, Your Honor, is that I will be more comfortable investing in research in this area if there is something it will lead up to.
Kung may bahay po siya in the end, no, which is a National Space Development Agency, NSGA. I don't know kung anong acronym ba gawin natin, no? Okay, one of the bills that we want to push is the startup bill, no? And we've been talking about this bill since the 16th Congress, and we're quite happy that it fell into our committee. So we also invited a few people to give their comments on the bill. We're going to ask one of my staff, si Jose, to present the salient points of the startup bill. It will be brief, and this is just an overview. But what we wish to do, as well with the other bills mentioned, is that after this hearing, we'll call for separate technical working groups to flesh out the bills further, get comments from the different sectors, both from the agencies and from the private sector, as well as from our office. And hopefully, in the next succeeding hearings, we'll be coming to a consensus on most of these bills already. The startup bill, when we first filed it in the 16th Congress, for those of you who've been keeping tabs on this bill, has changed a lot, no? Because the first time that we filed this bill, it was really only focused on tax incentives for startups. Now, with a lot of consultation with different groups, it's evolved into a true startup bill. The coverage, of course, are innovative startups, which means it's not limited to just digital startups, but there is space for other innovative companies to receive the benefits of this bill. There are provisions regarding bringing in people from abroad, similar to the Balik Scientist program. There are some provisions on incentives, which we asked our friends from DTI to also give their comments on. And in any case, we really want this bill to be a bill that came from the sector itself. So that's why we've invited IdeaSpace and Kickstart and our friends from Office Project and other startups as well, because we really want to spur the development of this industry in the Philippines. A lot of private sector groups have said that we have really good ingredients of a startup community here, but there are still a lot of obstacles that they face. And we're hoping that this startup bill can unlock these obstacles and take away these obstacles to make the development of this ecosystem much faster and much easier for our digital and innovative startups. So let me ask Jose to take us through the salient points. Later, we'll ask for comments from the startups themselves, and then we'll call for a technical working group to flesh out the different points. No? Jose?
Oh, okay. This is going to be a very quick presentation of the startup bill. Okay, so we lift this from the Philippine Roadmap for Digital Startups created by DOST ICTO, which is now the DICT. Well, the goal of the startup bill is to generate innovative startups. So we're not just focusing on new businesses, but we also want to attend to startups that really do anchor on technology to provide certain goods and services to people. Next. Okay, so the innovative startup that we used is one. It's operating for no longer 60 months, whose core business functions involves product or process business model innovation. So we need some work on the definition for an innovative startup, but basically we want to focus on those types of businesses. And of course there will be some gross revenue and R&D expenditure and some standards anchored onto which type of businesses do we want to support as a government and which types of businesses do we allow the private sector to fund instead. Okay, and aside from startups, there are support service providers that also do complement the establishment of startups in the Philippines, such as providers of co-working space, incubators, accelerators, fabrication and design centers. And we also want to foster that side of the industry because they are the ones who gather startups and allow them to interact more with each other. So we also want to prepare a set of benefits for them. First, a lot of the major pain point discussed by a lot of startups is the mainly problems in registrations and benefits. Although we recognize that DTI and other government agencies are already trying to ease in the requirements, while that's happening, we want to create a series of registration benefits that one would reduce the initial cost for businesses to set up, aside from expediting the process by which they can get their permits. Because normally we don't want these startups' ideas, business ideas to die in the registration line or because they don't have enough funds or knowledge to be able to register their business. So included there are waived fees and permits and certificates, refund in LGUs, fees and taxes for registration, and preference or expedited processing for their permits and certificates as well. For tax benefits for startups, we're looking at targeting exemption for at most 5 years for innovative startups. We can discuss how do we scale down or graduate the rates for startups within that 5 years. And for support service providers, we want to offer them deductions relative to foregone income that they use to benefit more startups, such as through discounts that they may give or preferential rates for startups. Next. We also want to provide subsidies and grants mainly for startups to establish by hiring competent employee or consultants for their innovative startups, mainly to scale or be part of their team, and subsidies to access support services such as in co-working spaces, and subsidy to undertake or commission market validation study, because sometimes we need to orient them as well to not just learn more about their technology, but also for them to study the market eventually, so that they can transition from the laboratory to the market. We also are we're also planning to create a fund that will be used to support initial or supplemental investment requirements for startups. There are a lot of discussions here on to what extent government must be involved when it comes to investing in startups. So this is still an open discussion, but we really want to be able to put funds into investing into technology-based new businesses. And mainly, we also want to be able to open our doors to a lot of players, not just in the region, but also for people around the world. We're taking often a page from innovation development plans, such as in countries like Chile, for example, who really opened their doors to a lot of startups to enter and set up shop in their country. So we don't see this as a competition, but we see this as a tool to expose us to the trends and practices of different startup communities abroad, and for them to be attracted into our country and to share that experience within the local startup community. So what we want to do is, normally the pain point discussed with us are mainly with visas. Normally it's easier for them to travel out of Hong Kong to extend their visa for another 2 months rather than for them to go through the renewal of their visa in the Philippines. So we want to rationalize that a bit and extend that to some extent so that they can be able to go around more in the Philippines without the hassle of going through a bureaucratic process that might be prone to some degree of corruption. So we want to extend their stay and simplify it through endorsement by a certified innovative startup or support service provider, or endorsement from the Innovation Council, which will be an interagency government body that we will discuss later. And as long as they provide existing and prospective business plan for innovative startup. It's a very basic requirement that countries such as Chile accept. You have a business plan, you're endorsed by a local startup, they allow you to enter into their country for a longer period of time. Next. So that was the general startup visa. Now this is a startup founder visa, mainly what we want to do to attract foreign players, foreign startups, to be able to set up shop in the Philippines. We've talked to a lot of foreigners who are establishing their startups in the country primarily because they want to leverage on our English proficiency, and at the same time with the skill set available even in provincial universities. So basically, they enjoy from lower overhead cost when they set up shop here while they're developing their technology and trying to scale the market and their technology as well. So yes, basically it will accord them stay up to 3 months from the non-renewal or revocation of their innovative startup or support service provider, which means for as long as their business exists here, they will be able to stay with their business in the Philippines. And again, they just need a certificate for an innovative startup and their business permit, and they should be able to stay with their business here. And next is the startup employment visa. Normally, if you're a foreigner, you want to enter into a country to be employed, you will have to subscribe to an alien employment permit, which is what maybe banks or multinational companies would have to comply with. But if you're trying to look at a team of startup innovators, a team of 3 or 4 trying to invite a friend from maybe Singapore or Malaysia to enter into the Philippines, that type of process might be too rigorous for them or might be costly for them. So to some extent, we want to lower that burden for them. And essentially, this grants up to 3 months from the expiration of the contract of an individual employed in a startup. And basically, you just need, again, the endorsement from the startup and the certificate of the startup and the contract between the employer, Filipino employer of the startup. Next is the investor visa, which will allow the multiple entry with minimum capitalization requirement. This can be adjusted, of course, and this can be studied further. But basically, we want them to be we want to attract investors to invest specifically in certified startups that we are going to recognize or establish in the country. Next, we want to create an innovation council, which is an interagency body with private sector representation. So we need to calibrate which agencies should be able to be should be part of the group, and what degree of private sector representation should be allowed in the agency. But mainly what it aims to do is to be able to monitor the implementation of this act, but secondly, to be able to spearhead and create, to drive the promotion and the development of the local startup ecosystem. And we want to be able to create our own startup website as well, because a lot of countries who really focus on promoting their startups have a devoted startup website where applications can be made, where promotions can be made, and which promotes their startups as well. If you try